All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Art of MMA. I'm your host, Mike Ginn. We got some big announcements going on today, as well as some results, some previews, and picks. Of course, you got the rant coming up soon, so stay tuned for that. But first, let me introduce all my co-hosts today. We got a full house, starting off with the mechanic. He's no longer Blade. He's back to being our mechanic, not a real mechanic, obviously. Professional kickboxer, talking about Brandon Catino. Brandon, what's up, buddy?
I'm wearing a legendary shirt. That means it's time to talk some fights.
I like the way that random one looks on you. Also joining us, talking about Dan Bakley, Cage My IQ. Dan, what's up, buddy?
Not much. Wearing my legendary one as well. So
now I'm going to kick it to the last guy. I'm assuming he has some kind of MMA shirt on, not an Art of MMA one, but he has something on. Talking about Calf Kick Sports Own, Tim Wheaton. What's up, Tim?
Oh, hanging out the usual stuff. I'll say I'm wearing a Dustin Poirier style flowery shirt.
Oh, there you go. That's festive. That's good. That's what Dustin always wears. I have bad things to say about when he does it, but I'll say some nice things about you.
There you go.
All right, guys. We got a lot to talk about today as far as MMA goes. But first, I did tease a big announcement. So without further ado, all right, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Fighters First Network. You just saw it coming now, actually. If you go to our YouTube page, it's already changed over to Fighters First Network. Art of MMA is a show on that network. What do you have to do at home? Absolutely nothing. Just keep tuning into the same great station, same great channel, same great network on YouTube every single week. What it does mean for you at home is that we're expanding. It's no longer Art of MMA. One of the great reasons we have Dan on the show today is because as of July 1st, we will be also featuring Cage My IQ on our network. It's going to be our network, not just mine, not just Brandon. It's going to be everybody that's involved. We're talking about a few more shows coming on. Not going to spill the beans yet until we have all the details. But as of July 1st, we will officially switch over to Fighters First Network. There will be a brand new website, fightersfirst.shop. Art of MMA is not going anywhere right away. We're going to keep that website as well for the show, but the shop, all the clothing and apparel, all that stuff will go over to fightersfirst.shop. Of course, all the links will be right in the show notes. We're going to feature some cool new shirts from Cage My IQ as well. We're going to get with Dan, get some great designs. Talking about Brandon, we might finally get that mechanic shirt up in the shop, so we're talking about that. And then, of course, we got some cool stuff. We're trying to steal Tim away. We'll see if he's willing to jump on board and do a few other things. But like I said, a few more details will come out, but we wanted to announce it mainly because I am absolutely horrible at keeping secrets. I wanted to put that promo video online like 2 days ago. I was like, oh my God, I can't. And then Dan asked me something, so I showed him, and then I was like, all right, well, now I got to show the rest of the guys. And I'm horrible at keeping secrets. So that's it. Fighters First Network is here. It is coming officially July 1st, kind of like in a soft beta right now, opening up. But like I said, more details to come. But you guys tune in for some MMA. So you guys ready to get started with this show?
Oh,
no doubt.
All right. Well, after all that news, I didn't want to delay it because, like I said, I'm horrible at keeping secrets. It would have ate at me all show long. It is time for the rant, and I can't believe I'm taking this side, guys. Oh, it makes my skin itch because you know how I feel about Ariel Helwani. Anybody's watched this show for this is now episode 37, so 36 episodes knows I have taken his side a couple times, but it's only because Dana sucks. But, you know, Dana White versus Ariel Helwani, how can you know? So the news came out not too long ago. Ariel Helwani was leaving ESPN and going back out on his own. The real story behind that is ESPN actually offered him less than his current contract to stay. He has actually elevated his name and his brand to the point where he doesn't have to do that. Dana White, since day one, has pushed for ESPN not to have Ariel Helwani. They have a long-standing beef going all the way back to when Ariel scooped everybody and let them know that Brock Lesnar was returning to the octagon. Since then, I mean, it wasn't great before then, but since then, it's been bad blood. But it does bring up a bigger picture issue that's been going on for quite a while. Now, we all remember UFC, and we're all old enough on this show to remember UFC 1, UFC 2, all that stuff, going to get the tapes at, dare I say, Blockbuster. We all used to go back in the day to get these tapes. We used to, like, order pay-per-view without our parents' permission, whatever the case was, to get these fights. They were almost tough man competitions back then. MMA has underground roots since day one. They started in bar brawls, Tank Abbott and all those guys, to all of a sudden, what would happen if Tank Abbott fought a Brazilian jiu-jitsu master like Royce Gracie, Dan Severn, a wrestling god back in those days. And then you had, all the different anomalies, Royce versus, somebody 300 pounds heavier than him. Just all these different matchups they did. There weren't very many rules. And then they started adding rules, and MMA became what we know today as a legitimate sport, mainstream, and in everybody's household on a weekly basis. Well, my argument would be that mainstream media can't handle MMA. They don't know what to do with it. If you look at ESPN, you look at before ESPN, Fox, and everybody on this show will have a slightly different opinion on everything, which is why I have them on the show so we can talk about this. They've never done a great job promoting MMA. Now, their sub-networks, ESPN Plus does a good job promoting MMA, obviously with Pro Fighters League and then UFC as well on the same network. Fox Sports did a good job on FS1 and Fuel for a long time. But when they did go on the mainstream channels, ESPN, Fox, you barely heard a peep as far as advertising the shows. You barely heard a peep after the shows. It's like, all right, the show's over. Go over to like one of our sub networks and watch the rest. We're not talking about it anymore. And that's not what they do with NFL. NFL, they talk about it an hour before and 3 hours afterwards on any given Sunday or Monday. NBA, same thing. Networks like TNT and ESPN and everybody, they talking all day long about it. Back in the day, ESPN had a show called MMA Live, and that was one of the first. It was one of the first big-time shows. John Anik, Kenny Florin, Molly Karam, Franklin McNeil. I interviewed a couple people from that show back in the day. It's one of the reasons, or not one of the reasons, but one of the things that transitioned the sports coverage I did back in the day to more MMA-based. Just those interviews, and then getting with Eric Johnson and growing Art of MMA after, funny enough, after a Korean Zombie fight. I talked to Tim about that this week. He didn't know that history, but I thought it was ironic. He actually showed footage from the Korean Zombie Dustin Poirier fight, which is actually, believe it or not, that's what started Art of MMA. It was in a local card in Fairfax, Virginia, close to where I lived, and Eric Johnson had driven up from Southern Virginia up to that show because it wasn't too far for him. We kicked it off, had a great chemistry. He interviewed Dustin Poirier, rest is history. Throughout the years, obviously, we've interviewed a number of fighters, but my argument is that Art of MMA is no different than the rest of underground MMA media. MMA fighting became a big network after SB bought them. But guess what? MMA has always been about MMA and the niche and combat sports. And even though Fighters First is growing to more of a combat sports network, which is more of the details that will come out, not just MMA, we're going to talk about kickboxing. We're going to talk about boxing as well. Professional wrestling. It's just going to be a whole combat sports network. Obviously, the core of it is still going to be mixed martial arts, Art of MMA, Cage My IQ, and other shows. I feel like we handle it better than they do. I feel like we have more passion about it. We care about it. We know what's going on week in and week out. So that's my opinion on it. I don't feel like they do a good job. I feel like they bobbled the whole Ariel Helwani thing. Thankfully for him, he landed at BT Sport, and he's back at SB Nation over at MMA Fighting doing the MMA Hour, which a lot of fans are actually happy about. I'm actually happy about that. He did some great interviews over there. He did some great stuff every Monday that he really couldn't do as much on ESPN. It was limited to an hour. Hell, we all know the MMA Hour was actually probably a 3-hour show. Like, it was not an hour ever. So just like we're not the hour that we're supposed to be because I talk too much, right, Brandon?
Yep.
All right, guys, I'm gonna kick it around to you. Brandon, I'm gonna go ahead and start with you. What do you feel about all this?
Honestly, man, I really want to say this is just really just I want to say it's a shot at ESPN. Like, to me, ESPN is really who we're talking about. We're talking about mainstream media. Because to me, I think you're right. I think ESPN has done a horrible job. But that's just ESPN. I think Fox did a better job, because you talk about them having their own shows and stuff like that. Well, Fox did have a show. It was UFC. I can't remember the name of their show, but they had a weekly show every Wednesday. It was Kenny Florian was on there. You know, DC used to come in and co-host with them if Florian was out. But that was their weekly hourly show, and they would talk about it. You know, and then even when we had the
But it was on
Ultimate Fighter,
FS1.
but that's still one of their channels. It would be the same thing if it was ESPN or ESPN2. Same thing. It's still ESPN is the main show. I mean, that's their main channel. But yes, you could put them on ABC as well, which they do sometimes, you know, with the games or with the fights. But it's the same thing, like if it's on FS1, FS2, or Fox. You really want to be on FS1, or you want to be on Fox. You know, not really trying to put anything on FS2. But again, going with what you're talking about with MMA Live on ESPN. Where was that show at first when it first started? It was online. It was an online show. It was an online show, and then people were clamoring for it. And then that's when they made it. They put it on the TV show. But remember though, what the UFC was put in a good spot, because that was basically the launching pad for FS1. It was like, hey, get FS1 so you can watch MMA, in which they did a good job. Like I said, they gave them their own show. Then even when they had the Ultimate Fighter, they had Tough Talk, so you could watch the show. Then after the Ultimate Fighter, right, you stay on the same network. They had interviews, guests, everything like that. So to me, at Fox, we're doing a good job on promoting the show. If you watch the NFL during some commercials, you would see a commercial for a upcoming fight. So I think Fox did a better job than ESPN. And like I said, you want to talk about like mainstream media. Like, to me, it's like, this is just the ESPN thing. To me, ESPN just bobbled it. Like, ESPN wants to be all over everything. Like, you see, to me, ESPN only covers basketball, football, and baseball. They show no love to hockey. They talk about NASCAR here and there.
Especially after they lost the hockey contract. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I mean, they do like Top Rank here just a little bit. Like I said, MMA's on Sports Center for maybe like a hot second. You know, like, to me, it just all depends on where you want to go.
I mean, in fairness, they show WWE more love, and WWE's on Fox. I mean, and Fox has gotten it right more with WWE than they ever did with UFC. The promotion they're doing now on their social networks, the promotion they're doing on their networks for SmackDown is way more than they ever did for UFC, even though you're right, they did a better job than ESPN, but that's not a very high standard. Dan, what do you think?
I think the problem with ESPN is they're trying to make too many budget cuts. They're trying to get people that do more than one sport than just have a specialist, which what they used to have to cover a certain sport or thing like MMA. I think they show more love to boxing because it's been around for over 100 years. MMA is a new thing. And I just think that they dropped the ball ever since they started doing this. Not just that, but everything. All you see on TV now on ESPN is debate shows or live events. You don't see any of the shows that they used to have.
Sorry, Dan, I don't edit. They're at coughs in the show.
Yeah, but you don't see what they used to have, where they had just shows developed for each sport. They got rid of all that. The budget cuts just killed them. And then I agree with Brandon. I thought Fox did a pretty good job. They tried to, and then they had FS1. They had a weekly show. He was right with MMA Live. It was online. And most of the time, you could only get it on Xbox, I believe it was. They had it on Xbox or PlayStation where you can watch it. But these places could do a lot better job. And I think it works better for Ariel Helwani because he gets to be himself now. Because I thought that ESPN tried to push things on him to do it their way, and he wants to do it his way, and he earns his right to do it his way. And I think that's why it was great that he's back with SB Nation and BT Sport.
Well, I mean, I think 100% is better for him. Whether he understood it at the time, I think he understands it now. And I think he's actually extremely happy to be somewhat free, even though he's working with BT Sport. But he can do other things like MMA fighting and stuff he couldn't do under contract with ESPN. Tim, what are your thoughts?
Man, there's so much. This is such a fun subject to talk about. We could do an hour and a half episode pretty much just on MMA and MMA media and mainstream media. But I think the ESPN deal really shows the changing tastes in viewership. And let me explain this. Of TV ratings are plummeting. Like TV ratings are half of what they were 5 years ago. And they're half of that compared to 10 years ago. The reason ESPN wanted the UFC was to be the main backing for their new online program, which was ESPN Plus. They don't want the UFC on TV. They don't care. They wanted the UFC. Their viewership are all 18 to 34-year-olds who don't own a TV, but do have online.
They wanted the WWE network.
That's essentially it. But they needed a good backbone for it. If you are a person who watches baseball, you probably don't have MLB network on your computer. But if you are a fan of the UFC, you definitely have Fight Pass, and you probably have ESPN Plus.
I got MLB.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, fair enough. But yeah,
so in fairness, though, it's because T-Mobile gives it to me free every year. But go ahead.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But yeah, I think ESPN really wanted the UFC just for their online backing. That's the changing taste. But there's so much I want to talk about with, I think MMA as a whole and MMA fans especially always show massive insecurities with wanting to become a mainstream sport. When in reality, and that's been prevalent for 20 years. They've always wanted to be a mainstream sport. And in reality, it is closer to that of BMX or snowboarding or like NASCAR or something like that. But also MMA has headlined on every major network. It's been on Fox. It's even been on CBS. The bottom line is MMA is sometimes super weird. When you headline on CBS, sometimes you get Mayhem Miller having a brawl. This sport is kind of weird sometimes.
In fairness, that wasn't his fault.
No, you got the.
I mean, a lot of Mayhem stuff is his fault. That wasn't his fault. That was Shields and all them coming at his ass.
But that was on CBS. That's a normal. Everyone's going from everybody
that
else.
Also
Raymond
killed
to
it on
watching
CBS for a long time.
That killed it. Kimbo Slice was fighting on CBS. There's it's kind of a weird sport overall. But I'll finish with one story of maybe the passion isn't there. We're all super passionate about MMA, and I think what really motivates us is fighter stories. If you ask me about Charles Oliveira, I'll get goosebumps talking about that guy, right? Because I love this story. But I remember maybe 12 years ago. Do you remember when Anthony Pettis, of course, jumped off the cage and kicked Benson Henderson? And it's one of the the Showtime kick. It's one of the greatest highlights of all time. One of the coolest things to ever happen in MMA. It was on the Sports Center top 10 at number 8. You're telling me there's 7 things cooler than that kick today? What kind of amazing
just for that week too? Not even overall, just for that week.
What kind of week in sports was this? How good was that week in sports? That was the 8th coolest thing you've seen that week, right? So I think maybe on one hand, the UFC is as mainstream as it is. We got the huge Brock to Ronda to Connor. And then on the other hand, maybe it's okay if it's a little bit underground. We're all bros here. You know what I mean? So it's 2 sides to the coin.
Go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I just kind of want to piggyback on what Tim was saying about basically, I want to say MMA fans being insecure. Because the thing is, like I said, me and Dan are both saying it. You're giving a little shine, Mike, but really, I'm kind of coming at you is because, like I said, we both think Fox did a real good job. But to me, the thing is it's not ESPN though. Fox Sports isn't ESPN. ESPN is the all end all where everybody wants to be. So if Sports Center is not giving it the love, then mainstream media isn't doing what it's supposed to do. But to us, like you said, Fox was giving them their own show on FS1 every single week. They were promoting The Ultimate Fighter, giving their own show for The Ultimate Fighter, while ESPN has it on ESPN Plus, which I haven't even watched the season. I haven't watched an episode yet because I'm like, hey, it's on ESPN Plus. If it was on ESPN, you maybe would have got me. But that's the thing. But like Tim said, they got the UFC to help build ESPN Plus. And which, of course, us as fans, we got to pay extra. While on Fox, it was good. And like I said, the sports and everything like that, like saying, even on the NFL Sunday, that was helping it. They were promoting it there and everything like that. So I just want to kind of just go off of that. It was to me and Dan both think that Fox did a real good job, but it's like I said, it's the greens. But even now today, you think about with Bellator, it's on Showtime Sports. They even have their own little thing, they're trying to get back into the MMA world. They do their little thing with Luke Thomas and Brian Campbell, with their Morning Combat show and everything like that.
And they also own the show that Brendan Schaub does too, Fighting the Kid, whatever it's called. I stopped watching a while ago. Before I kick it to you, Dan, I just have one rebuttal to what you said, Brandon. If Fox has as much money as Disney, if Fox wanted to keep UFC, they could have kept UFC. ESPN backed up the Brinks truck for him, but Fox could have matched that. let's be clear. If they wanted UFC that badly, they could have absolutely did it, because then they took all that money, which is half of what they paid the UFC, and threw it at WWE. Go ahead, Dan.
I think the one thing that we're missing, and I think it has something to do with that, is the word of TV is going into the streaming now. It's not all about networks now. It's all about streaming services now, being able to just have internet and then go to it at your leisure. And I think that's what ESPN did. Showtime has their thing. You can get the app and watch it whenever you want. And that's what people are doing now. And I'm kind of thinking about now, I think with all the budget cuts, ESPN, that's mainly why they made the budget cuts, because not a lot of people are watching TV live anymore. The number has gone down, and then the streaming has gone up because they're doing it on their own time now, because they don't have to.
Yeah, they can watch clips anytime they want. They can watch everything on demand pretty much.
And they could go watch it an hour later because it's going to be posted. So now with that, it's kind of, to me, it's kind of good that MMA is not on that mainstream, because then people are going to still watch it as much as they're going to, just not live. And that's why the pay-per-view numbers are high, because the people that tune in to watch it, they're buying it. But then you got a lot of people on the outside of just like everything else, they're watching it when they have time to, because everybody's working. They're not able to watch it. So when back in the day, you had to watch it then and there, you couldn't watch it later on.
Yeah.
But now you can watch it anytime you want. You can watch it 2 years from now, and it's still going to be there.
It's also oversaturated at this point too. I will say, you want one last thing to say, Brandon?
Yeah, I just got a question for you. I just want to know, because I know you're a basketball fan. Turner Sports, how do you think they are covering the NBA? What do you think of their coverage, their exposure for the NBA?
I mean, it's 24/7. Even when they're not showing the games, if you tune into an episode of Law and Order or whatever else, there's advertisements all day long for the NBA playoffs or whatever matchup during the season is coming on.
So, because I was say, because to me with TNT, all I see is, like saying they push Chuck, Shaq, Kenny, and Ernie through the roof with every network, every possible. They put them on CBS. They put them everywhere. Yeah. All right. That's all. Because in my head, I still want to say, I feel like Fox was doing the exact same thing that TNT is doing, with basketball.
They may have been, and it's been now a few years, so it's a little bit more in hindsight than we can. I will say one last rebuttal to what Tim said. He said the comment that he thinks MMA fans want it to be mainstream. I would argue they don't. I would argue the main fan actually rebels against mainstream coverage because they want it to be their own little niche thing, their best kept hidden secret that nobody else does. As a wrestling fan, how many times do you go out in public and you don't talk about wrestling, right? You don't sit there and tell the rest of the world, oh my God, I just saw Roman Reigns last night. You sit there and keep it with your close group of friends, but you're not going out to a bar talking about what happened. And I feel like MMA has exploded to the point where you do talk about it at the bar or at the, whatever event you're at, but it's still kind of like, oh, you watch that? And it's never gotten to the point where, oh my God, you have to see that. And that's as a casual person walking down the street. MMA has always been the best kept secret since early days of Hoist Gracie, Ken Shamrock, and all that, because it's gruesome, it's bloody, it's not family friendly. As much as they try to make these rules and make it organized, you have a situation with Jamal Hill and his arm just flap, 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 that has somebody casual like my wife going, oh my God, what is that? Now, she was actually both excited and scared at the same time. Weird dynamic, kind of like the horror movie type situation. But there are casual people like that walking down the street that will easily talk about the game on Sunday for NFL, but they will not talk about the fight that happened that weekend. And that's where MMA, and I blame that on ESPN. I blame that on Fox as well, Viacom, because if they pushed it more, not just, if you go to ESPN Plus to watch a fight, last weekend I went to watch the Korean Zombie Dan Ige fight. It was the fourth or fifth option on ESPN Plus when it was airing live. Now, this is supposed to be, your marquee reason for people going to ESPN Plus. People aren't going to ESPN Plus for baseball. They're going to the MLB Network or they're watching it live on TV. People aren't doing that for basketball. They're watching it live on TV. You built this network, like Brandon said, they built the network for ESPN Plus around UFC, and they're doing a horrible job on their own network of pushing it. PFL. To watch PFL on demand, there's 2 parts. It's not even one long stream. They pushed the first part, even though the show ended a while ago, and you still have to wait till the next day for the second part to rewatch Rory McDonald claim he was screwed, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But that's poor mainstream media. If you want to make money off this, which I'm assuming they do, they didn't put billions of dollars into it for nothing, then act like you care about it. You can bring in all the ex-fighters you want, and that's great. They have an expertise that you don't see anywhere else. Fox is the one that actually started that, bringing in the Tyron Woodleys and Daniel Cormiers and stuff like that, and ESPN carried it over. And they're doing it more now. You have Chael Sonnen, as much as he loves being the bad guy, he's full of insightfulness. You have people you never really knew could be that good, like Angela Hill, who's fantastic on TV. And then obviously it's still the same people, Tyron Woodley, Shad Evans, Daniel Cormier, so on and so forth. But you don't have very many MMA journalists. Like Dan said, you have people that can cross over from one thing to another, that can do multiple sports. And they're the people kind of hosting these shows now because they don't want to pay a dedicated MMA person. You don't see a Luke Thomas. You don't see an Ariel Helwani or anybody else has made their name for this in the sport for a long time. Hopefully one of these people on the screen right now one day. But you don't know that. And you won't see that on mainstream media. You'll see that on YouTube. You'll see that on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. And that's where I think the sport grows more than anything, because then communities are talking about it in groups versus on the street where nobody's saying a word about it because it's still a secret. That said, it's time to transition. We got a little bit of news to talk about real quick, but I do want to take a moment to shout out artofmma.com/shop. Yes, we are switching over to fightersfirst.shop, but that's not until the 1st. And also the specials that are good on Fighters First, Art of MMA will also still be good on Fighters First. A lot of the same great designs, and we're bringing out some new ones as well, and kind of remixing some of the originals as well to make them even better. So I'm working on a bunch of that stuff in the back, behind the scenes. But in the meantime, Fighters First, Dan and Brandon both have on the legendary tees. We're going to get Tim involved eventually. We may have to basically drag him to the store. And no, I'm just kidding. We're all online. There's no store. We're basically MMA. We're just like MMA. We're all online. But go to artofmma.com/shop. Use the promo code underground. Save 20% this week and this week only. A couple quick news notes, and then we'll jump into some results. We meant to talk about it last week. We did not, because we got so carried away with the rant and talking about what we were talking about. Warms Brandon's heart. Finally got a date for Pitbull versus AJ McKee Jr. That's going to be on July 31st, coming up shortly in a little over a month at UFC 263. We talked about it, funny enough. We thought that Blades and Rosenstruck would be a great matchup. Turns out UFC did too. So they're going to be going at it at UFC 266. A rematch that both Angela Hill and Tecia Torres said probably would never happen because Tecia Torres didn't have really much interest in doing rematches. Turns out she didn't have much offers to do much else. So Tecia Torres, Angela Hill will have a rematch. They're going to be going at it UFC 265 on August 7th. And Combate, now global, not America's anymore, Combate Global, they just synced a deal. They're going to be on Viacom, CBS Sports, and Paramount Plus. Speaking of which, like ESPN, Paramount Plus, CBS Sports Network, they tend to do a lot more online streaming MMA coverage than they do live. I think going to Showtime actually was brilliant for Bellator. I didn't think it at first, but they're still showing stuff on YouTube. And then they're taking the main card to Showtime, which makes it more exclusive, makes it more like, oh my God, I'm missing this. If I want to see it, I have to do this. Kind of like Strikeforce. And I think that got a lot of Showtime subscribers back in the day. And I think it was good for Strikeforce as well. Obviously, they got bought by UFC, so they did good for some reason. And it wasn't just the fights, because they had a lot of amazing fighters, but they were able to market themselves a way nobody else was. When everybody was watching UFC, they were like, wait, but what is this thing over here? And that's where Bellator stole the show. And I think they're trying to, or Strikeforce stole the show. And I think Bellator is trying to recreate history with Scott Coker. And then this last weekend, talking about boxing, something we really couldn't do before. But now the gloves are off. Talk about whatever we want. Anderson Silva stepped in the ring, went 8 rounds with Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. and beat him via the split decision, though most people don't think it was a real split decision. It was more of a case of boxing judges trying to give a fight to Julio Cesar Chavez. And one last thing, Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. stole the show in that main event. If you saw it, he fought Hector Camacho Jr. in 4 rounds. It was just pure entertainment. But when there was boxing, at 57, 58 years old, Julio Cesar Chavez showed, while he was still one of the greatest legends to ever grace the sport, he looked amazing and he looked fast. I don't know how many people saw that fight because it was on at like 2 a.m. here, but he looked fast. His hands were fast and furious. All right, guys, we're going to talk about some results. I don't want to talk about them. I had another bad week. I'm just going to end the show right here. Thank you for watching. No, I'm just kidding. God, I don't like Brandon's face when he's happy, man. It's like, I just want to hit him with a steel chair. Somebody just get Drew McIntyre for me and get him a Claymore or something. Anyway, I hate Drew McIntyre too. But anyway, let's talk about some results. We'll talk about the picks. Brandon went 3-2 last week, keeps his lead. I only went 2-3. Mr. Bakley down there finally had a flaw in his record. He went 3-2 as well, but both of them had winning records. I had a negative. Last time Tim was on the show, he had a winning record as well, and he's got his stats back on the positive side of 500. So later in the show, we'll see how that all adjusts. We'll make more picks, but right now, let's talk about the picks we did make, and let's start with the controversy of the week. Let's start with PFL 5. I had a chance to rewatch this fight yesterday. We're talking about Rory McDonald and Gleison Tibau. And when you watch something live, or even recently, like when it all happens, you have this, you get emotionally invested into what you think you see. Now, I don't know if any of you had a chance to go back and watch it a second or third time, but I watched it twice. I watched it once right after it happened. I was like, why is everybody screaming he got screwed? Let me watch it. And I'm like, well, maybe he did. But I was like, he didn't do enough in the 3rd round. So I was like, still questionable about it. And even after I talked to Dan the other day off air, we kind of started talking about it for a second. I'm like, wait, save it for the show. But I was just like, I still don't think he got screwed. And then I watched it again yesterday, and I'm now convinced he did not get screwed. Rory McDonald sitting there throwing a fit, like all of a sudden the world is coming to an end. Like they just sabotaged him, and it was a witch hunt. First of all, Brandon mentioned last week, PFL has every intention of Rory McDonald versus Ray Cooper for the season championship. Like, let's not sugarcoat that. So why would they want him to lose? He's talking about them going back Fabricio Verdum style and overturning the decision. No. This fight, he might have won, but I didn't have such a problem with him losing because he didn't do anything in the 3rd round. He coasted. He tried to sit there and stay on the outside. He didn't want to get caught with anything. Tibau didn't do much either, but at least he pushed the pace. And then it goes back to that 1st round. Rory clearly won the 2nd round. But the 1st round, who did you have? Because Rory didn't do much in the 1st round either. Both of them had moments, and I can't get mad at some judge, and 2 out of the 3 judges gave the 1st round to Gleison Tibau because he pushed the pace. Rory didn't do enough. You always say, don't leave it in the hands of the judges. We just had a whole rant, on MMA refs and MMA judges. Don't leave it to them. You're supposed to be the king of this welterweight division. Go out and finish Gleison Tibau. Everybody on this show was talking about maybe him finishing him in the 1st round. Rory McDonald didn't look like he wanted to finish him. He wanted to sit there and coast to a victory, and that's what you get when you leave it to him. You can argue whether he won the fight or not, and nobody's going to really sit there and disagree if you say he won the fight. But you can't disagree that he didn't try to win it either. And that's what I kind of stand on that. We all picked Rory McDonald, so we all took the L on that one. Tim, I'm going to start with you because you weren't here last week to talk about this. What did you think of the fight?
And every week we get to talk about MMA judges, and the story never stays the same. Like, you can add more judges. I don't think live scoring is the solution, but it's part of it. If you guys want to do that, I think adding more judges would be a good solution to it.
But
But
live scoring would have done a lot if Rory knew on 2 out of 3 scorecards he was tied 1-1.
yeah, and you don't have to show the audience necessarily. You can tell the fighters as to what's going on. You can tell them just a couple of rounds, something like that. The thing is, Rory McDonald really hasn't lived up to the potential that he had 10, 15 years ago that we all saw in him. And Gleison Tebow has stayed the exact same fighter for 25 years now. He hasn't changed at all. I do like Gleison, but yeah, I had Rory in that fight just as everybody else did. I don't have any unique take on this one. It's just every week we get to talk about MMA judges. You know what I mean?
Did you have it 3-0? Did you have it 2-1? How'd you feel? Rory?
I don't think I was doing a real live scoring, but by feel, I think I would have done 3-0.
Even the 3rd round?
Yeah.
Dan?
Personally, I had it 2-1. I had 1 and 2 to McDonald, and then 3 I had Tebow. For me, it's just
and all 3 judges had the 3rd round for Tebow.
Yeah, yeah. But for me, like just overall work, it's kind of hard for me to give Tebow that fight, considering he had connected on 32 total strikes, whereas Rory McDonald had, I believe, 89 or 90. And a lot of it was in the second, but it's like, how can you justify giving it to Tebow when he only did 32? That means he would have had to win 2 of those rounds, where he would only, at the most, probably throw 10 in each round, if you think about it. And it's just, for me, it's just, I don't know how they scored it that way. Like, I do agree that Rory McDonald probably should have finished him to take that doubt away, because once you finish him, you know you're going to win. They tell you, if you want to win, make sure you never go to the judges, because you never know what's going to happen when it goes to the judges. And that's basically what happened. He's basically coasting because of that playoff format. And I think you're going to see more of it this week. With a couple of fighters that are going to be fighting, where they can just coast to try and win, or even if they lose, they're still going to make it. But he should have he should have put the win in his hands, not the judges.
Yeah,
and
don't,
stuff like that.
Don't leave it up for grabs. Yeah. Brandon, what he just said too, and also I'll go a step further. I always beat the drum, right? You hear me every week talking about, I love the way one does the judging for the fights. I know a lot of MMA fans hate it, especially after, the underground king, Eddie Alvarez, got, he lost. But I love the fact that the judges can watch an entire fight and say, okay, I think this person won. In that case, Rory McDonald probably would have won this fight, because mostly of the damage he did in the 2nd round. You look at, B fighting Ritu a few weeks ago. She made such an impact because the way she kept coming forward. You look at the stats Dan just mentioned of the punch count difference. If you're looking at the fight as a whole, yeah, Rory won because that major 2nd round, and Tebow didn't do enough in the 1st and 3rd round to win, if that's the case. But you don't. It's judged round by round, and anything can happen. What did you think of the whole situation?
I mean, really, my whole issue is gonna be just with the 1st round. I said I thought Rory won it easily, hands down. Gleison didn't do anything. I think he landed maybe 1 shot. Yes, it was a strong shot, but I really don't think he did anything else. Like, to me, that 1st round was just all Rory. He took the 1st and 2nd round. You want to give the 3rd round to Tebow? That's fine. I have no problems with that. But that 1st round, to me, that was Rory's round. And hey, 2 judges, they saw for Gleison. Like I said last week, man, it's all about maybe where it is that you were sitting at. You didn't see everything. We have the whole screen to look at. But yeah, I mean, I would have been 4-1 in my picks, but it is what it is.
Now you sound like Dan. I mean, honestly, look, I think it just goes down. If don't leave it in the hands of the judges. Anything can happen. My thing is that we've seen worse screw jobs in the history of MMA than this one. Go ahead, Brandon.
All right. I was gonna say just to go on your one thing with judging. I get it. I understand it, but I just feel like people are just such prisoners of the moment, where it's like, yeah, you're saying that, right? Rory, if you would have did that, like, we know Rory kicked like really handled business in the second round. But in the third round, you think that T-Bow did more? I feel like people would have gave the fight to T-Bow.
You think
like,
the last memory they see?
Yeah, exactly. Like case in point, Diaz. That Leon Edwards fight, Leon Edwards controlled him the entire fight. And then that last fifth round, he had him rocked. The whole crowd was going crazy. Judges going to hear that. They're going to be like, oh, he was hurt. Oh, fight Diaz. Like, that's what I think would happen if we really did the one over here. But I could be wrong. People,
well, in fairness, we talk about the main critique of one's judging is the Eddie Alvarez fight with OK, right? And I thought OK won the fight. You thought OK won the fight when we talked about it. And OK did the damage in the first and second rounds, and later in the fight, Eddie had like a rally, right? In that case, Eddie would have won the fight, but he didn't. The judges stuck to it. I think the judges are still taking notes the first few rounds, whether it's a 3-round or 5-round fight. I just think at the end of the day, they look at all their notes as a whole versus, and we don't know the whole criteria going into one judging. It's always a mystery. They kind of got that whole shadiness of certain things that one does. But this isn't a bash on one. I actually like the fact that, you go into a fight, you think, okay, well, I saw this in the first round. I saw this in the second round. I saw this in the third round. I don't have to worry about the whole boxing scheming of 10-9, 10-9, 10-9, or 10-8, which has gotten even more ridiculous when you look at some of the judging from the Jan Blachowicz versus Israel fight, where Jan laid on him for like a couple rounds and got a couple 10-8s. That 10-9 at best, but as MMA fans, we know, all right, yeah, Jan did control that. All right, we still give him that edge in that round, but 10-8. So the whole criteria is just screwed up. Whether it's the Rory McDonald fight, all I'm saying is we've seen worse screw jobs. I'm not going to sit there and go all fire and brimstone for Rory McDonald over this one, because like I said, he coasted in the third round. That was his fault. If he knew it was 1-1, maybe he would have gone out and finished with the open scoring. Who knows? But he didn't. The co-main event, we're talking about Ray Cooper versus Nikolay Lexikin. I said it right, Dan. Lexikin. Ha. I couldn't say it right for shit last week, Tim. Anyway, Ray Cooper got the nod. It was a little closer fight than people thought. I actually picked the Lexikin because of his history and the people that he fought in the past. But Ray Cooper did take care of business, got the unanimous decision. The first unanimous decision of Ray Cooper's career win. Only time he's ever gone to a decision before, he lost. So this is his first win. Dan, I'll start with you. What you think of that fight?
Like I said last week, I thought it was going to be a very close fight because of the contrast in styles. They both have like a wrestling background. Alexikin had more of like the Sambo style. But Ray Cooper, he had the urgency. That's what he had. He needed to win because if Alexikin would have won, he would have hopped over Cooper and Cooper would have been out of the playoffs because he only had 5 points because of the missing weight with the -1 point deduction. So there was no points to be won by him. He had to just win to keep Alexikin out of it to jump because he would have jumped him over. The first round was very close. You could have went either way with it.
Brandon laughed this week.
Yeah. It could have went either way. They were both just basically trained shots. Then in the second round, that's when Ray Cooper took over. He kind of limited what Alexikin could do because he took him down and kind of, like I said, just limited anything he could do. He did the same in the third. He pressured him. He wound up winning 2-1 and kept his spot in the playoffs. And I thought that's what he needed to do. He needed to have that kind of fight where he had to be urgent. He had to like be challenged, and that's what he did. And he rose to the occasion with it.
Yeah, the way they do the point system for the playoffs leaves a little bit determined for me. I feel like some people kind of get left out, even if they won twice, they didn't win them dramatically. Other person could get a knockout, but then lose and still be in the playoffs. I don't know. I think maybe there should be a third fight in the season, like maybe stretch it out a little bit more, but that's just me. Anyway, Tim, what you think of this fight?
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. I think Dan really hit the nail on the head here. Seeing a little bit more urgency from Ray Cooper was nice, and seeing someone who can adjust the game plan as they go along. And that's and we're going to talk about Ige in a little bit. And I think that's kind of a very wise thing in a mixed martial artist.
Brandon?
Yeah, I just want to say, like, I really want to say,
You've been beating the drum for Ray Cooper for a while.
Yeah, because I'm a fan of his, man. I like his story, him and his family. But I think that's the thing. I think a lot of people see Ray Cooper as just a boxer, a guy who has heavy hands. but like Dan has been saying, he has a wrestling background. He can mix it up. But I think the thing is just the way it's just where he likes to fight at. He likes to standing, but he can go to the ground if he has to, as we saw in this fight. Like I said, man, he was the champion last year. He's trying to defend his championship, and like I said, I think we really just see him just evolving as a complete mixed martial artist.
I think he looked great. I think he did his job. He fought a very tough opponent. A lot of people don't know Alexican that way, but we mentioned last week, he's fought people like Jonathan Webb, who's a former UFC fighter, CFFC great, over in the Northeast, right in the neck of the woods for Brandon and Dan. So, he's tough, and Ray Cooper did what he was supposed to do. Go ahead, Dan.
And as you're going to mention, he trains at the same gym as Fader. You're going to see a lot of these names pop up.
I actually wasn't going to mention it, but okay.
Yeah, but you're going to see a lot of those names pop up. So that's why I thought he was going to be a good matchup, because of the background, all the guys there that train there, like him, Nadim Van Koff. You got Moldavsky fighting on Friday. You got Nemkov's brother. All those names, of course, Fader. They just make for great matchups because that style that they do translates.
No, definitely. The Sambo's always been a very strong style in MMA. And they have exactly. On the rest of this card, a couple of things. Unfortunately, Dan's friend and interview guy that he's interviewed a few times, Jordan Young, took the L in what turned out to be Tom Lawler's last fight. I actually hadn't heard the news that this was going to be Tom Lawler's last fight, but it is evidently his retirement fight. So Tom Lawler goes out with a unanimous decision, pretty much 130-27 across the board. And he looked good the whole fight. Tom Lawler looked like he could still definitely fight. The story of Curtis Millender is going down, down, down. We were like, is he going to be a good opponent to Rory? To now he's gotten 2 dominating losses. I think Curtis Millender might be on his way out the door as far as PFL goes. João Zeffirino looked great again. He got the submission win. And Chris Camozzi continues his comeback story. He got another win against Cesar Ferreira in a tough fight. But then there's the mystery of Antonio Carlos Jr. and Vinny Magalhães. I was looking forward to that fight. I thought 2 vets, 2 guys been around for a while, and then Vinny took the way out. He did not get hit that hard in the nuts. He did get hit clean, but to sit there and say, I can't continue, and he didn't even try. All right, you got 5 minutes. He's like, no, I can't continue. That to me right there says he didn't want to be in that fight, because I've seen people on less just hop right back in there when we know damn well they shouldn't have. We'll talk about it in a second. Korean Zombie messed up his shoulder and he still went 5 rounds. So Jamal Hill was having his arm flipping and flopping, and he still was right there, trying to, fight. So Vinny kind of took the way out, lost a little respect for him, but he did get a clean shot. Wasn't like he didn't not get hit in the nuts, like the thing in Triller a few weeks ago. He did actually really get hit, but he did play it up a little bit, as he clearly wanted out of that fight, in my opinion. All right, guys, you ready to talk about some UFC?
Yep.
All right. Korean Zombie, Dan Ige, main event, UFC Vegas 29. Chan Sung Jung got the win pretty easily. I thought he gets in these wars sometimes. I thought Korean Zombie starts throwing hands with Dan Ige, he's going to get put to sleep. And let's be real, Dan did get the benefit of most of the stand-up exchanges in this fight. He just couldn't cover the distance. He couldn't get inside on Korean Zombie too much. And when he did land. But Korean Zombie used his grappling. He took him down. He controlled him. He did what he wanted to do in this fight a number of times on the way to, I don't know how one judge had 48-47. I didn't see Ige winning 2 rounds. But 49-46 seems pretty good, pretty fair. Tim, I'm going to start with you. What you think of this fight?
Ige has every loss. He looks pretty good. And he's had close fights with Qatar. He's had close fights with Barboza, and kind of shows the same issues fight in, fight out. But if you're going to take a loss, this is a pretty good way to take a loss. He still has the same sort of entries where he's coming forward and he has a fainting jab, which is completely ineffective. And then he goes into his right hand. one thing that he does really well, and that you had mentioned in the exchanges, he pops in and out on different angles, and then he goes high-low. And those are really good things that you want. But the problem is that you don't see the rest of the game developing. Korean Zombie was still able to do the, every time he came in for a jab, Korean Zombie can do the over-the-shoulder. He had no problem getting takedowns. He had no problem controlling the grappling. I mean, Korean Zombie did what he needed to do. I'm excited. The featherweight has always been a great weight class, but I'm excited for what's next with Korean Zombie.
Brandon, Korean Zombie showed a little bit more. I mean, the more comfortable he gets back being in the cage after he had that long layoff, he's getting a little bit better. He's using his grappling. He's not just standing and banging. You saw he learned his lesson from the Brian Ortega fight. He didn't repeat that mistake. What'd you think of this fight?
Hey man, good job by the Korean Zombie. Like I said, I mean, he too, man, is, to me, I just feel like depending on who he's fighting is what dictates, how the fight goes. But I think this time maybe he just stayed to his game plan. He knew he wanted to get the fight to the ground, took him down, controlled him there, did what he had to do. I mean, we all know that he has a submission game, as you talked about earlier. His fight against Dustin Poirier, he if he gets the fight down there, he can definitely finish with submissions. But I just want to say, man, he just, like I say, he just is kind of readjusting himself, with that time off. Got back with his coaches, and I just want to say he looked good. I like his call out. I mean, who wouldn't be down to see him versus Max Holloway? So we'll see if that happens, down the road.
I don't know if necessarily him and Max is the fight I want to see. I do think it would be a nice bloody war that MMA fans would crave, but I want to see Max versus Volkanovski 3. I know we're not going to. Or him versus Brian Ortega. Like, I want Max to get back to that belt because he looks so good against Cater. Dan, what do you think of this fight?
I think there's two things that I saw with this fight. First, with Dan Ige, his preparation needs to change. He has the mindset of a 3-round fight going into every fight. Now going into a 5-round, he has to switch it up. He always starts off heavy. He tries to go hard the first round, and in a 3-round fight, you can tend to tire out, but then recover for it because there's only 2 rounds left and you already got the one. So then you can kind of not take off the second round, but be light the second and then try and come back strong the third. And in this one, you got 4 rounds after that. He took the first round. I thought he slowed down, but that's when you saw Korean Zombie's takedowns. You start seeing him use those. This was the first time in, I think, 10 years that he got a takedown, because he's so used to staying up and training. And then he had that 3-4 year layoff because of the military. I thought Ige wasn't expecting that because it's been so long since he used it. So I think he was shell shocked with that, and it took him for surprise. And that benefited Korean Zombie when he did that, because he was able to get them a little bit easier, and it helped him out later on. He was able to take Ige out of his game for some of the point of time in that fight. And it got him going, and it showed a more well-rounded game from him, because you're so in tune to seeing him just stand up and train and have wars, because it's been so long since he used that style of his game. And I think the Ortega fight brought that back to him. I think him getting beat like that made him add to his repertoire and bring that back. And I think he wants to kind of redeem himself for that. And he called out Max Holloway, but I want to see him and Calvin Kattar first. I think that would be a better fight for him to take that. And then if he shows the same thing, then be like, okay, I want Max Holloway.
I'm going to share a little bit of.
Can I jump in there? Can I?
Well, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, it's just a quick one. The last time that Chad Sung Jung, you inspired me to look it up here. The last time Korean Zombie got a takedown was 2012 against Dustin Poirier. It has been 9 years. So
I'm going to let you know a little bit insight on that fight. I was actually just about to mention that because Tim brought it up and posted it on his social media. And I mentioned that I was there. This fight was actually eerily similar to that, because as a fan standing in the crowd, I was very close to the cage. I kept screaming for Dustin to let his hands go. In that fight back then, this is a much less experienced Dustin Poirier. It was the first loss of his career. He was kind of like diamond in the rough. He wasn't really the diamond yet, even though people were pumping him up. He was elevating up to the main card. It was on speaking of Fox, it was on Fuel. It wasn't even on FS1. It was on Fuel. And in that card, in that main event, anytime Dustin let his hands go, he got the best of Zombie, and then Zombie would take him down. Zombie would grapple him, he would take him down. Happened every time. And to the point that Dustin got trigger shy because he didn't want to throw his hands because he was going to get taken down with the level change. This fight was very similar to that. Dan Ige, when he let go, he got his advantage. But so many times with the distance, the reach, he was so scared to get caught, he got to the point where he wasn't letting go, especially later in the rounds. This fight was very similar to that. So it's kind of a weird, like, it's parallel there that Tim brought up with that old fight, because it was very, very similar. I'm just hoping Dan Ige doesn't really go the way of Cowboy. We all love Cowboy, but if Dan Ige can win a bunch of fights but never win the big one, that's going to haunt him. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the co-main event. This is actually one of the picks I want to throw out there that Brandon got wrong and I got right, as well as Dan. Dan picked Spivak too. Tim, I'm going to start with you on this one. What you think of the co-main event? And am I right? Is Oleinik just done?
Yeah, I picked Oleinik going in. Everything on paper should have Oleinik winning this fight. He's a much better experienced grappler. He's got way more submissions, everything on paper. He's even had grappling matches with Gordon Ryan and Quintet. He's a much better grappler on paper. But the wear and tear,
that's the biggest problem.
There you go. The wear and tear and age. And you see it, especially in heavyweight MMA, is these guys are fighting, it looks like in slow motion. These is a 15 rank versus the no rank. It's sometimes a tough fight to watch because you just think you guys should be doing better. But no, Alexei Oleinik, I agree with you. I think he can just live out the rest of his career as a coach. He's got a lot of experience. He's a smart guy, but losing to Sergey Spivak in that manner doesn't bode well for your future in MMA.
Yeah, you picked Spivak as well. What do you think of this fight?
If I could be any more critical than I was with Walt Harris, I'm even more critical of Sergey Spivak, because this guy got lucky with this one just for the fact that Oleinik friggin' went good for the first round. He got that, but then he tired himself out and was still coming at him with that gashed the thing on his head. And then they made the joke at the end of the second where he was laying down with his feet up to just catch his breath. And they're like, a guy that's fought this long and so many fights, this is the way he does it. This is the way he does it. But I didn't see anything from Sergey Spivak. He just looked slow, tired. He just took advantage of a guy already being tired. And then one thing that really got me going, and I mentioned it on Monday night, was, how do you announce a guy and say he has a combat sambo background, and what does he not do? He didn't use any of it. Not any of it. He just stood up and tried to trade, and he was connecting with stuff, but there wasn't any power, wasn't any urgency. It was all slow. And then he just took advantage of the situation where his opponent tired out. Anybody else, he would have lost. But in this fight, he won.
Yeah, Brandon? You picked Oleinik.
I don't know, man, but I got enough out. Oh, man, Dan just buried. Dan took the shovel, started digging it, man.
That's why we got him on the show.
Oh,
I can't be the only negative person on this show. I can't be the only bad guy.
Nah, man, everything Dan said, I agree with, man. Like I said, man, I did pick Oleinik, man. Like Tim said, on paper, that's what I thought. And, I thought with the experience and everything, I thought he would come out and do his thing. And like I said, that first round came out strong. And then it was just kind of a wrap after that, maybe like I said, maybe this time I was hoping he would be the one, in his 40s to say that, hey guys, we can still keep on going, but it just wasn't the case.
I mean, Father Time bows down to no man. I don't care if you're a bigger fighter or whatever. I mean, matchups make everything. This fight should not have been the co-main event. We've all talked about it. They should not have been the co-main event. There was many better fights on this card, including an older fight with Matt Brown and Diego Lima. Go ahead, Dan. What were you saying?
I say, if they want to put me out of my misery, they would just put Walt Harris against Sergey Spivak next now, because they're right next to each other in rankings now that Oleinik was replaced by Spivak. So
I'm pretty sure Walt Harris is on the next group of cuts, but that's I don't want to see somebody lose their job, but we talked about it last time. Walt Harris would be much better off in PFL or Bellator at this point, and finishing his career there with a different level of heavyweights, because the heavyweights in the UFC are just too much for him. especially with the grappling background that many of them have. Though I could see Walt Harris banging with like a Felipe or somebody like that, though. I could see that too. Other fights, the one pick that Dan did get wrong, he did pick Davey Grant in the rematch against Marlon Vera, and Marlon Vera just whooped Davey Grant's ass, hands down. Dan, you want to talk about that fight?
And that was a really good fight in itself. I had it 2-1 Vera. I think in the second round it was close, but I gave the edge to Vera because he was more the aggressor.
Did you give Vera a 10-8 round?
Close enough, and like I thought he could have gotten it because of those elbows. That was the X factor at the round one. I gave round one to Grant. He did a little bit more. He took it, but then he started to get a little bit tired. And then Vera just kicked it into overdrive with those elbows and just like putting work in. And this is a trilogy that I want to see. Like you see the big names, but Grant had the first fight. He had this fight. And they were just, even though he was getting beat and then you knew he was going to lose, Grant still came after and still tried to do something to get the win. And I want to see them run it back a third time. Will it happen? Probably not. But that was one of my fight of the nights there.
It might, because I mean neither one really has a lot on their plate going forward. Sean O'Malley's definitely not going to run it back with Vera. He's going against Smolka, and he doesn't want that. He doesn't, excuse the pun, he doesn't want that smoke. He doesn't want Vera again, no matter what he says in public. Vera exposed him. Vera didn't look great his last fight, but he did look good today or last weekend. And that's the Vera that we want to see, that coming out there, not being afraid of getting hit and just going balls to the wall. That Vera can do a lot of damage. Brandon, your fight was in the beginning. You picked Casey O'Neill. And actually, I did too because of that, because I was looking at it and I was like, I don't even know why people are picking against her. She was an underdog. I actually won a little bit on Casey O'Neill because when I saw you picked it so cleanly, I was like, yeah, why are people like more on Casey O'Neill? What'd you think of that fight in the prelims?
Hey, man, like I said, it was a good way to start the fight card. You always get a finish, in the first fight. That's always a good way to start the fight card. But it was real good for Casey O'Neill. She got some work in. She had a round in, and then she was able to get the back, locked up the submission, and she put homegirl out.
Yeah, I mean, she looked good. She looked really good. Took her to the third round to get the finish, but she looked good. My pick was, of course, I picked Chaos Williams against Smellsberger. Close fight. It went back and forth for a while, but Chaos definitely did more. It wasn't even kind of a questionable decision. Chaos took care of it. He should keep moving up the food chain a little bit. A couple other fights of note before we get into some of our previews and picks. Matt Brown turned back the clock against Diego Lima. I don't know if that's as much as a benefit to what Matt Brown did, other than it keeps him fighting versus going back into like a semi-retirement. But I think Diego Lima's just looked horrible his last couple fights. He didn't look good against Bilal Muhammad. He didn't try to engage. And then he didn't look good against Matt Brown in a fight that he could have engaged and still – go ahead, Dan.
Did you notice Bilal Muhammad made the comment on Twitter towards Diego Lima? He was like, come on, Lima, where's the low calf kicks?
Yeah.
Because he wasn't throwing them. He made the comment.
He really didn't do much of anything. He really let Matt Brown get off, and that's how Matt Brown looked good. Matt Brown hasn't looked good his last few fights. He looks like an older fighter, and Diego Lima looks way older than he actually is right now. Couple other notes going on that card. Julian Erosa won't be getting a date with Miley Cyrus anytime soon after getting knocked out in the first round.
Loved it.
Talk about MMA judging. Here's one for you. Parisian got the nod over Rogue Martinez versus split decision. That to me seemed more like a robbery than the Rory McDonald did. Like I thought Parisian was going to come in and win that fight, but Martinez definitely looked like he had the more active rounds to win the fight. So that one to me was more of a fuss than the Rory McDonald one, because both guys in the third round were trying to win it. I thought Martinez did the job. And then Ricky Glenn knockout over Silva. All right, guys, we're going to move on. We're going to make some picks and get out of here. We got 3 cards to kind of roll through real quick. Oh, one last thing. Korean Zombie, 6-month medical suspension pending his MRI this week. possibly separated or dislocated shoulder in that fight with Ige, and he still did what he did. So the man is a warrior. We've seen the fights with Leonard Garcia back in the day. We've seen the Dustin Poirier fights. I mean, Zombie just always brings it. Even in the T-City fight, he never quit, even though Brian Ortega was dominating that fight. So hopefully Zombie gets back in soon. That's another reason I don't see the Holloway fight. I see Holloway getting ready to fight soon. I think Zombie's going to be out for a little while, recovering. All right, let's talk about it. PFL 6 this week. Sorry, got a little mixed up there. We got Kayla Harrison back in action, going against Cindy Dandos. Brandon, you're the king of the ladies fighters, and you've been kind of critical on Kayla Harrison over the weeks. What do you think of this fight, and who's going to win?
So this pick, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I'm picking with the heart, not picking with the brain. I'm going with the upset. Cindy Dandois, been a fan of hers, going with the Battle Cat, judo versus judo. Doing it one last time. I'm going with, this is a fight that I've been looking for ever since I heard she was coming to the PFL. I get it now. I have to wait for the playoffs or anything like that. I mean, I think it's one of those things where like Kayla Harris is going to come out gangbusters. Like I know she is. She's going to try to she's probably most likely going to try to put her hands on Dandois, but I'm just hoping that Dandois is just going to try to take a grab of her, take her to the ground, and then just let the judo and the jiu-jitsu play out. But like I said, I mean, I'm sure all three of you guys are going to be picking Kayla. That's cool, but I'm going with Cindy Dandois. I'll be cheering hard that night.
Tim?
Yeah, naturally, I'm going to be picking Kayla Harrison. I think this is going to be a big showcase fight for her. Dandois is not overly talented when it comes to striking, but she has had good wins over people like Marlos Kunin and a few other very good wins. You can have a frustrating style for people, but overall, I think it is judo versus judo, but I think it's fair to say for everybody that Kayla Harrison probably has better judo than
Olympic level, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. But yeah, that's all. Yeah, Kayla Harrison is probably a great fight for her.
Dan?
I think this is going to be a good fight just because if there's somebody that can, if that rival be a little bit less of a grappler and everything with Kayla Harrison, it's Cindy Dandois with that. But I think this is the fight where that Invicta fight in November is probably going to benefit Kayla Harrison the most because she was able to let her hands go. I know you can't use elbows. She used a lot of elbows there in that, and they can't do it in PFL. But I think just to fight down a division and get that striking going because she's so used to just judo throw and then submission or ground and pound. I think that's where what she's going to use in this. She's going to try and stand up and strike with her. And I see this as a first round knockout.
Yeah, I think Kayla's going to roll in this one, but I think it's actually because of what you guys have said about the judo background. If Dandos has something that Kayla hadn't seen before, I could see maybe being a little difficult. I think Kayla's weakness might be a striker that has good takedown defense. But you're going toe-to-toe with an Olympic level champion in Kayla Harrison doing what she does. And also Dandos is way older. I mean, not like 5 years older or something like that. I think Kayla's younger, fresher, and stronger. Dandos looked okay against Kayla Young, but she did lose against Young. I think it's going to be a little bit of a tough fight, but I think probably by the second round, I think it's going to be over, and I think Kayla Harrison's going to get the win. Just because, like I said, you don't go judo with somebody like that. You can knock Ronda Rousey for a lot of her striking back in the day. Nobody wanted to go grapple with Ronda Rousey back in the day. It took an Amanda Nunes to knock her ass out, a Holly Holm with a head kick. Nobody wanted to go toe-to-toe grappling, and I think that's what Dandos has to do, and I don't think you can do it against somebody like Kayla Harrison. So this is right in her wheelhouse. I think it's a very bad matchup for Dandos, and I think Kayla's going to roll into the playoffs. In the co-main, we finally get Anthony Pettis back in action. Rosh Manfio in action against him. A lot of movement, a lot of matchups changing over the weeks, but this is what we finally got. Dan, who you got in this fight?
I got Anthony Showtime Pettis in this one. Like I said before, you're going to get guys that are going to try and coast to just make the playoffs and not have to do too much. Manfio, he can coast and get like a decision victory in this matchup and make the playoffs with 6 points. So like the game opens up for him because he doesn't have to do too much to try and get a finish. He could just coast and win. Whereas Pettis is going to have the urgency where he needs a finish to guarantee that he makes it. And I feel like he's going to get back to the basics, not just be crazy Showtime. He's going to use all that and sound crazy, but I'm going with the second round leg kick knockout by Pettis for the victory.
Doesn't sound crazy at all, Tim.
I'm going to pick Pettis. Raush Fino is a little bit tough to find footage on, so I couldn't do too much of a technical breakdown on him. But I think Anthony Pettis should be the favorite going into this fight. His back is really against the wall in terms of he needs a win. This is probably a fairly winnable fight for him. But yeah, I'm going to be picking Pettis on this one. I'll take him by decision, though, but that's just me.
Brandon?
I too am going with Anthony Pettis, but really, I think he is the better fighter overall. But to what Dan was saying, urgency. The man says he wants to be the face of the PFL. He's on the verge of not even making the playoffs. So he needs the finish, because if it just goes to decision, I don't think he's making it. So he needs a finish. He needs first or second round. I mean, he could get a finish in the third round, but I don't know if that's going to help him. So I really want to say, though, he's gonna go gangbusters. He's gonna let it all hang out. He's gonna get this W. And like I said, I'm just going to go with Anthony Pettis.
Yeah, I'm taking Pettis too, and I think it's going to be a first-round knockout. I think we always say on this show there's levels to this. Clay Collard was a lot tougher fighter than Manfio is as far as his history of going against different opponents, his level of competition. Manfio, I mean, we all know Titan FC is a great regional promotion, but that's not UFC. That's not Bellator. That's not even PFL. He got a split decision against Lutterbach, which was questionable at best. So I don't see him really going toe-to-toe with somebody on the level of an Anthony Pettis. He trains an American Top Team. He knows his stuff. But Anthony Pettis is called Showtime for a reason. And like you said, his back's against the wall. He either shows up and shows out, or it's all over. So I do think Anthony Pettis is going to take this one, and I think it's going to be a pretty quick knockout in the first round. Or even a sub for real. People sleep on Anthony Pettis' jiu-jitsu, but you remember, like Benson Henderson fight, he had both his arms basically tied up and he was tapping them out. So a couple other fighters on his card. Lance Palmer needs to get back in the win category if he wants to defend his title as well. He's going at it. I'm interested to see Brandon Sales. Was he a benefit of fighting a guy who didn't have that much experience in Usman, Muhammad Usman, Kamaru's brother, or is this a guy who's been serving in the military for this long and people just didn't know he existed because he was gone for so long? I thought he looked pretty good against Usman, but we'll see. He's got another tough opponent. Larissa Pachenko is back. Pacheco's back in action. I like watching her fight. I think she's got definitely a good chance in the division. And then lower down on the card, because so many things have moved around, Renan Ferreira. We don't really know what to make of the whole, did he tap, did he not tap? Was it a knockout? Was it a not knockout of Fabricio Verdum? So he's going to get a chance against Stuart Aston, a fight that I think he should handle pretty well considering how he did look against Fabricio, but we'll see. And then funny that Dan Doss is in the main event considering she lost to Caitlin Young, who's all the way down on the prelims towards the beginning of the card. But as we've seen in weeks past, PFL's been putting on great shows. Even if you don't know the names, a lot of these matchups have been very entertaining from start to finish. So it sucks that ESPN wants to break it up into two different streams, but it's worth it to go dig in through ESPN's archives to find PFL action and take a chance to see it if you hadn't seen it live. All right, guys, you ready to move on to some Bellator action? Bellator is back in action. Interim heavyweight title on the line because obviously Ryan Bader's in the light heavyweight Grand Prix. So Tim Johnson versus Valentin Moldavsky. Valentin. I'm going to do like Brandon. I'm just going to say the first name. Interim heavyweight title on the line. Brandon, I'm going to start with you. Who you got in this one?
Moldavsky. Reason being is because one,
now you say the last name.
Hey man, I'm a man of many talents. I just really want to say he's the better fighter. He's a better martial artist. He has more tools. Like Dan was saying earlier, he trains with Fedor. He's from those guys coming up. And like I said, his training partner is the light heavyweight champion. So I just think those guys are just gonna start collecting belts. And I mean, I'm sure if you're a real 100% blood American, you're going to be rooting for Tim Johnson, but not me. I just don't think I don't think he has what it takes to get the W on Friday.
Tim?
Absolutely. Valentin Moldavsky, he's got experience being a champion in combat sambo. He's got one loss in MMA. That's including his amateur record. The guy is a grinder. He's a great fighter. He's really powerful. And Timothy Johnson in a main event for Valentin is a great showcase fight for him. I think this is going to be the moment that we really start talking about Valentin in the future. He trains in Stary Oskol, or he's from Stary Oskol originally. He trains at Team Fedor. This is going to be kind of the moment where we say, like, so it wasn't baby Fedor. Is this the next Fedor then? But yeah, this is going to be a good coming out party for Valentin Moldavsky.
Dan?
This is where I go against the grain with these two. I like Moldavsky. I agree with everything they said, but it's been a nice thing to see Timothy Johnson change up his game. He started out 0-2 in Bellator, and then he incorporated his wrestling background into his game plan. He's been able to take guys down, wear on him, and then he has the power. He has that knockout power. I don't think Moldavsky has that. He usually wins with his volume. I just give the edge to Timothy Johnson. I think he'll be able to knock him out as long as he has that chance to do that, and then he has the wrestling to kind of combat against Moldavsky. I feel like he's going to have a good shot, and I actually have him with a third round knockout.
Man, you stole my thunder. I'm picking Tim Johnson too, and it's not because I'm a red-blooded American, as Brandon says. I look at the last 3 wins. You can go a little weird on the Czech Congo split decision, but he clearly won that fight. He knocked Matt Mitrione out when Matt Mitrione was on his rise in Bellator, kind of with Matt Mitrione's second life. He kind of ended that. And then up and coming last February in 2020, everybody was screaming, Terrell Fortune's going to be the next big guy. He knocked Terrell Fortune out in the first round. Both him and Mitrione were first round knockouts. Tim Johnson has a knockouts chance, and he's done it against higher level competition. You can talk about who Moldavsky's training with, but he hasn't trained against Terrell Fortune, Matt Mitrione, Czech Congo. Tim Johnson's a little older, a little slower. But yeah, I kind of agree with Dan. I think this second life that we're seeing out of Tim Johnson's pretty entertaining. For a heavyweight, he's not over the hill at all when you talk about being 36. That's almost a heavyweight's prime nowadays. So Tim Johnson has gotten a second life, and I think he's going to do this. I don't think Moldavsky's got the experience, even though he's got the record. I don't think he has the experience against top-level guys the way Tim Johnson has in the UFC and in Bellator. So I'm picking Tim Johnson. Go ahead, Brandon. I see you smiling. Go ahead, say something.
Because, man, you're funny. That's all I'm gonna say. Because now, right, Tim Johnson's 36 years old. Oh, he's good. He's not old. While somebody else like Tyron Woodley or even Cindy Dandois, 36, you're like, oh, they're old. They're
different divisions.
They need to be done.
Different divisions. We've always talked about this, that the older heavyweights last a little longer. 36. Okay. First of all, I didn't say Tyron Woodley was done because he was 36, 38, actually. I said he was done because he's lost like 4 fights in a row.
Okay.
And I said Olenek was done because he's my age. I shouldn't be. Well, I mean, I do want one fight. Any promoter wants to call me. I'm way overweight, but I can cut. Brandon can get me on that fitness schedule. I can do that. One fight.
Hey, Mike, what do you think of how about a Herschel
Walker?
Fight? Yeah, Herschel Walker. Yeah.
I'm actually in Bob Sapp's weight class right about now, but he's got about 8 inches in height on me, and that's probably not a good matchup for me. I don't even want to hear babyface Coutinho over there, his response to this. So we're gonna move on to the co-main event. Oh, I can't with this show sometimes. I might have to get a substitute host one of these days since we're expanding the network. Might have Dan or Tim just host the show one day so I can take a week off. You guys are killing me. King of the ladies fights will be all over this one. Liz Carmouche versus Kana
Watanabe.
I actually said this right 1,000 times until I got on air. Speaking of it, go ahead, Dan. Make your pick. Who you got in this one?
I'm going with Kana Watanabe. I feel like Liz Carmouche, the last fight that she had with Vanessa Porto, that was kind of boring. She didn't do too much. She just did enough in that fight to beat Porto. And I feel like Kana Watanabe is going to use that judo, and she's going to take her down and kind of not lay and prey on her, but basically lay on her, limit what Kamuchi is going to do. And then I feel like she's going to dominate the fight.
Tim?
Yeah, Kana Watanabe all day. I'm very impressed with her. She's come up through Deep Jewels, come up, had a few wins in Ryzen as well. I'm extremely impressed with her. I think she keeps on this undefeated streak for quite a few more years in this division. I do like Liz a lot. She has a lot of history in the sport as well. She was the first MMA fighter to actually step in the octagon officially. But I do wonder how over the hill she is. I know she's on a 2-fight win streak, and she's got a style that can carry well into old age with trying to be top position grappling. But yeah, I think this is a Kana Watanabe fight all day.
Brandon?
I'm going against these gentlemen, man. I'm going with Liz Carmouche. Like Watanabe, I want to say, she has the judo background. So basically it's going to be judo versus wrestling, because that's really what Liz Carmouche likes to do. Like, I don't think they're going to be standing trading shots. I just think Carmouche has the experience. She has the high level more opponents. So, and also too, like I said, her last fight was against Vanessa Porto. That was her first time in Bellator. So there is a case of Bellator jitters as well, as people like to always say how there's UFC jitters. Also, though, Vanessa Porto she isn't a slouch. You know, she was
Former Invicta champion.
Exactly. You know, former Invicta champion. You know, she was on the come up. So I mean, her first fight wasn't against a nobody. So that could make her look bad. So I just think she's gonna have a better outing this time around.
I like that if I can jump in here, I like that we had
my pick yet, Tim. Go ahead.
But so far we've had 4 different enunciations.
4 people.
4 different ways of saying Kana Watanabe. Sorry, go ahead, guys.
Oh, I quit. Anyway, I'm really torn. Like, on one hand, I do think Brandon's right. I think Liz's experience could be an advantage. It reminds me of the Ronda Rousey Liz Carmouche fight, where people forget Liz had Ronda in a lot of trouble in that first fight until Ronda kind of pulled out and got the armbar. But I mean, Ronda was in position she's not used to being in. Liz Carmouche can wrap you up like a pretzel when she gets you on that ground. So it's really a matter of how much willpower does Watanabe have to want to fight through some of the bad things that Liz is going to put you in. I'm actually going to take Liz Carmouche in this one too. I think once again, I think Kana has definitely fought a higher level of opponents than what we just talked about with like Moldavsky, but because I mean she's already fought 2 Bellator fights. She's not new to the promotion, but she only got a split decision last time. She had a hard time out. I think the veteran ability, and Liz has actually looked better. You know, Brandon said I'm bashing older fighters all the time. Liz is 36, 37, and she's actually looked like she's gotten better too, kind of like the way Tim Johnson is. It's kind of appropriate. They're on the same card. In other news on this card, before we move on, go ahead, Brandon.
Nah, man, you know what? You bash them when you want them to lose.
3-hour show.
You praise them when you want them to win. When you want them to win, they're not old. But
This is why I'm not
want them to
this is why I didn't
lose,
wear glasses
they're like,
this
oh,
week,
they're
Tim.
old.
Well, I couldn't take my glasses off. I should have put them on so I can take them off. I should never have all 3 of you on at the same time.
Yeah.
I gotta space y'all out. Somebody call Alex Soto. Alex, you want to come on next week? I need somebody.
Let's go, man. Let's move on, baby. UFC.
Brandon can host this show. I still got to finish talking about this card, Brandon. All right, undefeated Christian Edwards finally back in the cage. One of John Jones' proteges, Jackson Wink. He's going against 7-1 Beyond. That should be a nice challenge for him. See where he's at. Miles Jury back in against Sydney Outlaw. That's going to be a fun fight. I'm surprised Brandon didn't really want to move on because his boy Daniel Weichel against undefeated Keone Diggs was going to be a fun fight. So there's some good fights on this card I'm looking forward to. Actually, in one fight, didn't get a lot of love. A lot of people haven't talked about. Taylor Johnson versus Lance Wright. Both are young up-and-coming fights. Both look great on the regional scene. So I'm interested in seeing that fight as well for people that look for something that they don't usually see otherwise. All right, Brandon, let's move on to UFC. Let's go ahead and talk about the main card of the weekend, UFC Vegas 30. We've gotten to a nice even round number. Cyril Gane versus Alexander Volkov. Since you guys don't let me get to talk, I'm going to go ahead and make my pick right off the bat. I'm actually
Brandon, who do you have?
Tim, I can mute you. I'm picking Volkov. I think he looked absolutely fantastic in his last few fights. I think you got that one little hiccup against Blades because the wrestling. I don't think Gon is going to use his wrestling to that level. And with his distance, the way he punished Overeem, the way he punished, aforementioned Walt Harris, and the way he did us all a favor against Greg Hardy. He lost that late fight to Derek Lewis, but if that was a 5-round, I mean, if Derek Lewis doesn't catch him with that knockout, that was actually Volkov's fight. So I'm picking Volkov in this fight against Cyril. I think this is going to be Cyril's first loss. I think his height, his distance, I think is just too much for Gon to overcome. He didn't look great against Rosenstrike. He did enough to win, but that's my opinion. Tim, go ahead. You want to go interrupt me? Why don't you start this one off? Who you got?
Sure. Yeah. Similarly, I do have Volkov. So this is number 3 versus number 5. Volkov, he's a much more experienced fighter. He was an M1 champion. He was a Bellator champion. He's a Kyushin karate black belt. He emulates the style of Semi Shield really well. So a lot of other guys have tried to emulate the style with the lead toe kick or the lead teep kick into the jab, into a 1-2. He actually does that really, really well. Both of these guys, it's not really a mirror match because their setups are so different. However, the endpoints are very similar. What these guys are looking to do with leg kicks, a lot of teep kicks, a lot of jabs, a lot of 1-2s. Gon has a lot of very fast motion. He's very quick in and out, which does fade over the longer term. Neither of these guys really do defend leg kicks, but I think the keys to victory for both of these guys are going to be pretty similar. You want to push your opponent against the cage to nullify their range. You want to initiate the exchanges, be the first to throw, mix your high and low strikes, mix in a clinch if you need to as well. But I think in this case, I think this is a great fight for Volkov to really get back into the top 5 there, to really get back into that heavyweight title picture.
Yeah, I think I really wanted to see him match up, maybe even a rematch against Blades to see if if he could overcome that takedown, that wrestling. But he's moving up. He's fighting Gon. Brandon, who you got in this one?
Man, I'm kind of shocked. I really didn't think you guys would be picking Volkov, but that's who. But that's who I'm going to be picking. This was a tough. I was going back.
We got to keep up with you in the standings.
Yeah, I was going back and forth with this one a little bit, but the reason why I'm actually picking Volkov is kind of really what Tim was saying. Is I feel like a lot of people forget that this guy is a former champion. Bellator, M1, he's been a champion. So I mean, he has that mindset. He knows what it is to be a champion, and he wants to be a champion in the UFC. Like I say, he did look good his last fight. Like I said, the only thing we got to worry about really with Gon is if Gon wants to take the fight to the ground. I think he has more options for the finish. Gon does, but the thing is though, then you think about his last fight that he had with Rosenstruck, where he was cautious, which I can see him being the same way with Volkov. But I don't think Volkov is going to be as cautious as Rosenstruck was. But I think Volkov will go after it. Plus, too, he has the height, but I think Gon has the reach by maybe an inch or two. So that could be something to watch out for. But I just think Volkov is just going to put it on Gon. If Gon hesitates, like how he did against Rosenstruck, I think Volkov's just gonna pounce on him.
Before I get to Dan, I will say one thing. I think the reach advantage isn't what worries Ciryl Gane. I think the reach with his legs that Volkov has the advantage. Those long legs that he uses to use. I mean, you saw how he kept Overeem off balance. Just those long forward kicks, almost like that. That John Jones style, almost with the way he does those kicks, could definitely keep Gane off balance too. But go ahead, Dan.
I'm going to be that guy again, but I'm going with the Ciryl Gane with this.
You got to get knocked off your pedestal too, so go ahead.
Yeah, but you got a heavyweight right here that moves like a featherweight. He literally moves like a featherweight. He's very quick. He has very good cardio, and his distance management is really well. They kind of emulate each other with the leg kicks. I think Volkov doesn't use it as much. He's more of a striker than he is using the legs. He uses the legs to set up his striking, but majority of his stuff is just jabs, straight right, counter twos. Whereas Gane is more of a well-rounded fighter. He likes to use his hands a little bit, but he uses a lot of different kicks. Of course, the kickboxing background, and then that's why he uses the distance. But I think everybody sleeps on his wrestling because he doesn't use it as much. And after seeing Volkov do so bad against Blades, he was taken down, I think, 14 times, I think it was, because he doesn't defend it well. I think Gane's looking at the tape and he's like, maybe I'll use it in this fight. Kind of like, I'm not comparing it, but Korean Zombie decided to bring back the takedowns against Ige. A little different story, but you weren't expecting it. And I think that's what he's going to do. And he has the speed and the movement to be able to do that. And I think he's going to limit what Volkov can do, because Volkov's going to try and push him against the cage and do his damage there. And I got gone by unanimous decision.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I just think Volkov is a bigger Rosenstrike with much more reach. And if Gane is hesitating against going against Rosenstrike, like Brandon said, Volkov isn't going to hesitate coming after him the way Rosenstrike did. Volkov is going to come after him right off the bat, and we're going to find out, is Gane for real or not on this Saturday. I got Volkov, though, so I think he's just got the experience, and I think he has the range that's going to give Gane nightmares. Co-main event, even though we've all talked offline, we wish it wasn't the co-main event, as there's several fights that are probably a little bit more entertaining. But we don't really know which St. Preux is going to show up against Tanner Boser. We don't know which Tanner Boser is going to show up. Both guys have looked fantastic at times. Both guys have looked horrible at times. Dan, I'll start backwards. I'll start with you this time. Who you got in this fight?
I'm not going to take long. I'm going with Tanner Boser. I think St. Preux has a glass chin now. He just, once you hit him, he goes down. I don't think Boser is that big of a striker, but he has one of the best hand speeds in the division, and like he's pretty durable. And I just think he can put him away with not that bad of a shot.
Tim, which St. Preux shows up this week? Is it the one that got knocked out by Jamal Hill? Is it the one that knocked Menifield out? Or is it the one that just grinds out a split decision loss to Ben Rothwell? Who shows up?
And that's the thing of breaking down OSP fights, is you don't know what he's going to be bringing to the table. Sometimes he looks so good and his striking is smooth. He does counter striking. And then other times he doesn't even have a stance. Sometimes he's a really good wrestler and sometimes he's not doing anything. The only thing he does consistently well is the Vaughn flu choke, which he hasn't gone for in a few fights. So you never really know what OSP is going to show up. This might be a prime kid who backs himself into the cage and then wins via counterpunch like he did against Shogun. Tanner Boser's from Bonnyville, Alberta, which isn't too far from where I grew up. And he looks like every guy I've ever met from Bonnyville, Alberta. He's a big slugger. He really does fight like a young Roy Nelson, like an IFL level kind of Roy Nelson. You know what he's going to do. He moves in for 1-2s. He's kind of doing the same stuff. He fought 2 weeks ago against Ilir Latifi, which he got no injuries. That's great. OSP is moving up to heavyweight. He had one fight in 2019 against Rothwell at heavyweight. I don't honestly know what to tell you for this fight. Anything could happen in this fight. You might see a Von Flue choke.
You need to pick one way or the other.
I'll pick OSP in this one, just because. But honestly, I don't know.
Brandon, Tanner Boser, on the play devil's advocate, he didn't take much damage because he didn't really do much against Latifi. He didn't do much against Arlovsky. Which Tanner Boser do we see? Who you got in this fight?
I'm actually really I'm actually picking OSP. I know this is actually his second fight at heavyweight, so I think he's going to be used to kind of moving around as a heavyweight. You know, and usually kind of really with OSP, like I feel like he's a on and off guy. Like one fight he'll be on, next fight he'll be off, then the next fight he'll be back on. He'll usually bounce back. So his last fight, you know, he had the one with Rothwell. So I think this is going to be his bounce back fight. I said, man, you got Tanner Boser, man. He's on a 2-fight losing streak, right? You know,
yeah, I mean, both of them pretty much on losing streaks because St. Preux lost to Jamal Hill also.
But I think I think this fight is for OSP. I see him taking him down, and we probably might see another Von Flue choke, or should I say OSP choke?
I think this is a good matchup for OSP. I think he has looked slower in his last few fights. I'm not really worried about the glass jaw as much because Jamal Hill's put a lot of people out. My concern would be normally him going to heavyweight, like against the Ben Rothwell was so much bigger than St. Preux coming up from light heavyweight to heavyweight. Tanner Boser is a smaller heavyweight. He joked about it last fight. There's no way he's cutting to 205. But at the same time, he's walking around 240 or so. He's not like an overly huge Ben Rothwell that's going to cut to 265 and wear you down the way he did against St. Preux. St. Preux looked horrible in the third round of that fight against Rothwell because he was just so tired and so exhausted. That won't be the case in this one. I don't expect a Menifield performance where he comes out and gets the knockout. But also people remember he didn't look great in the first round against that Menifield fight either. He came back in the second round and kind of got going. I don't really know what to expect out of this fight, to be honest with you. I'm kind of like Tim. I'm kind of on the fence either way. I'm going to pick St. Preux mainly because I don't want Brandon to keep pulling ahead of me. But I could see Tanner Boser pulling this one off too. It really could go both ways. But I think St. Preux probably has the quickness advantage, which Tanner Boser doesn't fight very often. He normally fights slower guys, and in this case, St. Preux might be the faster. St. Preux's getting up there. I mean, he's 38 too, so 38 versus what, 30 or 29. So Boser does have the age advantage, but I just think in this case, Brandon's going to be happy. I'm picking a lot of the older guys this episode. I think St. Preux is going to take this one. All right, guys, it's time for us all to make our individual picks. I'm going to let the Joker over here, Brandon Catino, I'm going to let him go ahead and start off. Who's your fight pick for the week?
I'm going with Charles Rosa. He's on a winning streak. I just think, he's on a winning streak. Justin James is actually on a losing streak. So I just want to say, to me, this is a setup fight for Rosa to just have a showcase. There you go. This is a showcase fight for Rosa to have.
I think it's gonna be a fun fight. I think it's good for Rosa too. Tim, who's your fight pick?
I got Dalby versus Tim Means. I think this is a really good fight for Nicholas Dalby because he is a karate-based fighter. He throws massive leg kicks. He's looking to set up massive head kicks against Tim Means, a guy who he's been in the UFC since 2012. He's a very talented fighter. He mainly plants his feet and looking to land a long jab, and he statistically does not defend leg kicks. So I'm going to say this is a great fight for Dalby.
I'll say it's dangerous for Dalby though too, because Tim Means has looked pretty good his last couple fights.
Dirty Bird.
Yeah, it's a great fight.
Not even considering the Mike Perry fight, but he looked good before that too, over against Star Poli. So Tim Means is no like pushover for sure. So it's a good test. Dan, what's your fight pick for the week?
I got Moicano against Herbert. I think this is a fight where we could see Moicano using his wrestling to take down and then forcing on the ground to limit what Herbert could do, because Herbert has those feints, jabs. He likes to set up everything to get to the right hook. He has the height and the frame that is pretty tall for the division. But when you get him down, it's easy to keep him down because he has poor takedown defense. And I feel like it all depends on the coaches for Moicano. He seems to have two coaches that are like, they tell him to press the takedowns, and he listens. But then he has two other ones that he usually brings also at times that are like stand up and trade. And if he stands up and trade, he'll be susceptible to lose. But I think if he uses his grappling and takedowns, he'll win.
I think, yeah. I mean, Moicano's been knocked out 3 of his last 4 fights. I mean, against top level guys, but still, like, he's definitely got that glass jaw. But then again, Herbert got knocked out his last fight too. So they're probably going to go toe-to-toe. I don't think there's going to be much grappling in that fight. My fight pick, speaking of going toe-to-toe, Andre Fili versus Daniel Pineda. I think this is just going to be a fun matchup. Fili lost against a grappling specialist in Bryce Mitchell. Bryce Mitchell can wrap you up in a million different ways with his jiu-jitsu. But Fili went toe-to-toe with him and gave him probably his toughest challenge to date. Daniel Pineda got knocked out by Cub Swanson, but before that, he upset Herbert Burns, who was on his way to the top. He had a couple weird things, in the PFL in 2019 with his decisions getting overturned. And then before that, he's been fighting in the regional scene for a long time. But Daniel Pineda, even though he lost to Cub, he did have his moments going toe-to-toe in the first round. I think Fili's just a more well-rounded fighter. I think Fili can take you down. I think he can grapple you. I think he can stand and bang with you. And I think this is a chance for Fili to get right and get his win. Gentlemen, it's been a long, entertaining show. Much of it attacking me. Y'all want to know why I'm about to turn heel? It's because they're going 3-on-1. And I'm about to turn off everybody's mics and just talk for 2 hours. But anyway, I can't do that to Brandon. He's the co-host. So, and the other guys I'm trying to recruit, so I can't do that to them either. Damn it. Sucks being in this position. But you guys got anything else to add to this card before we move on?
I think that Fili Pineda fight, that's a fight of the night. written all over it. That's a great fight.
It definitely could be the fight of the night.
Yeah.
All right, guys. One last quick note before I let everybody get out of here. Fighters First is coming July 1st. It is already in effect in a way. You know, we've always been for a while. Art of MMA / Fighters First, kind of been our slogan. People like Brandon on the show back when we first started coming on the podcast, Sergio De Silva. We've had Bradley Desir. We've had Sean Santella, Shorty Rock. You know, obviously Alex Soto comes in from time to time. We've always been about interviewing fighters. We've always been about talking about fighters. One of the reasons why Cage My IQ is coming on our network, not only so we can grow together, we want his fans to subscribe to us. We want our fans to watch his show and enjoy it as well. He does a lot of great interviews. Tim, Calf Kick Sports, always follow his show. We're still trying to steal him to the network, but follow his show, the analytic breakdowns he does for that, as well as MMA Sucker. He just had posted a great video for MMA Sucker. Those analytic breakdowns are something cool and you don't see everywhere, especially in mainstream media. That's something you can see on a show like Calf Kick Sports, Tim's, Cage My IQ with Dan. Of course, me and Brandon here every single week on Art of MMA. That's not changing. We're going to be here every single Wednesday, whether Brandon hates me or not. We're here rocking our Art of MMA gear. So make sure you hit the promo code Underground. Save yourself 20% this week. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming as always. We will see you next week. For Brandon Catino, Dan Bakley, and Tim Wheaton, I'm Mike Ginn. This is Art of MMA. We'll see you next week.